When I first saw Lake Willoughby, it didn't look real. The water was so still it mirrored the clouds, and the surrounding pines looked painted against the summer sky. The kind of view you see on postcards, the kind that makes you wonder if your problems could shrink to the size of pebbles if you just stared long enough. But I wasn't there for vacation. I was there to work. My name's Ethan Cole, 22, junior at Ohio State University, majoring in hospitality management. Tuition had gotten expensive, and my part-time campus job barely covered books. When I saw a job listing for summer staff at a luxury Vermont resort, I applied before I could overthink it. Room, board, and decent pay, plus something about Lakeview Retreat Resort, sounded like the kind of place where people came to find peace. I didn't realize that peace might be a luxury for the staff, too. By the time I arrived, my bus had already left a cloud of dust on the long gravel road. My backpack dug into my shoulder as I approached the main lodge, a grand, rustic building with flower boxes under the windows and a deck overlooking the water. It smelled of cedar and freshly baked bread. Inside, behind a massive reception desk, stood Mr. Harold Benson, my new boss. He was in his mid-50s, gray hair neatly combed, tie perfectly straight even in the summer heat. He had the posture of a man who ran his world like a ledger. "You must be Cole," he said, looking up from a clipboard. "You're a few minutes early." "I like that." I smiled nervously. "Thank you, sir. I thought it'd be better to—" He cut me off with a nod. "Punctuality matters. We serve an upscale clientele here. You'll find guests expect perfection, and we aim to deliver it." "Yes, sir." "Good." Orientation starts at 11 sharp in the staff hall. You'll be paired with another seasonal worker, Lena Alvarez. She'll show you around. His tone wasn't unkind, but it left no space for conversation. I could tell immediately he was the kind of boss who didn't believe in casual Fridays. "Understood," I said. Mr. Benson scribbled something, then added, "My son will be joining us shortly. He helps with management." I caught this slight hesitation before helps. I had no idea what that meant, but it didn't sound promising. The staff hall was already buzzing with chatter by the time I got there. Students and locals lined up at tables filling out forms. I sat beside a girl with dark hair pulled into a messy bun, tapping her pen against the paper like she'd done this before. "You knew," she said without looking up. "Is it that obvious?" She grinned. "You've got that fresh recruit panic in your eyes." "I'm Lena. Housekeeping." "You." "Maintenance assistant." "Ethan." "Cool. Stick with me, Ethan. I'll make sure you survive Mr. Benson's morning inspections." I chuckled, already feeling lighter. That's when the doors opened and the room shifted. A tall guy strolled in like the air itself made room for him. Sunglasses, casual linen shirt, rolled-up sleeves, and the kind of confidence that didn't have to announce itself. It just existed. He didn't rush, didn't look nervous, didn't even carry a clipboard like the rest of us. He was late, and he didn't seem to care. Mr. Benson's voice echoed from the front. "Nice of you to join us, Ryan." The guy, Ryan Benson, apparently, just smirked. "Wouldn't want to miss the fun, Dad." The staff exchanged looks. "Dad?" So this was the boss's son. When his gaze swept across the room, it stopped on me for half a second, long enough for me to feel it. Then he gave a faint nod, like he'd just scanned my entire soul and filed it under interesting. I looked away instantly. After orientation, Lena and I were assigned to our rooms in the staff cabins, simple wooden bunks with thin curtains and mosquito nets. I was unpacking when I heard laughter outside. Lena peeked through the window. "Oh, great. The prince has arrived." "The prince." "Ryan. Mr. Benson's golden boy. Technically, he helps manage guest relations, but mostly he just flirts with the guests and drives his dad insane." I frowned. "He seems confident. That's one word for it." She smirked. "You'll see." By the afternoon, we were sent to do introductory rounds, checking guest amenities, learning routes, and safety protocols. I was assigned to help test the outdoor sprinklers near the cottages. It was simple enough until the control valve refused to turn. I was twisting it with all my strength when a voice behind me said, "You're gonna snap your wrist like that, city boy." I jumped, turning to see Ryan leaning against the porch railing, sunglasses still on despite being in the shade. "I'm not from the city," I muttered. He raised an eyebrow. "Ohio, right?" "Might as well be." I rolled my eyes and went back to the valve. Shouldn't you be doing something managerial? Like supervising new hires? That's what I'm doing. He crouched beside me, reaching past to adjust the handle easily. The sprinklers burst to life with a hiss and a mist of cool water. I stared, half impressed, half annoyed. Lucky guess. Skilled touch, he said, smirking. You'll get there. Thanks. I think. He tapped the brim of his sunglasses like it was a salute and walked away, calling over his shoulder, "Try not to drown the garden next time, Cole." Lena, who'd been sweeping nearby, gave me a grin. Told you. Prince Ryan loves his little kingdom. I sighed. He's something dangerous if you're not careful. I told myself I'd avoid him as much as possible, but that turned out harder than expected. Over the next few days, Ryan seemed to appear everywhere I went. Refilling ice near the guest lounge. He'd stroll by and toss a casual, "Hey, you missed a spot." Carrying towels to the pool. "Need help? Or you got it, tough guy." Lunch break by the dock. He'd sit nearby, pretending to check his phone, but always finding a reason to talk. It wasn't mean, just constant. Playful, teasing, unpredictable. And for some reason, no matter how much I told myself to ignore him, I couldn't stop noticing the way he laughed easily with everyone, or how he remembered tiny details, like how I took my coffee or that my mom ran a diner back home. One evening, after a long shift, I walked past the boathouse and spotted him helping a kid guest fix a fishing rod. No sunglasses, no swagger, just patience. He didn't see me, but that moment stuck with me longer than I wanted to admit. That night, lying on my bunk staring at the wooden ceiling, Lena whispered from the top bunk, "You okay down there?" "Yeah," I said too quickly. "Liar. You've got that overthinking voice." I chuckled softly. He keeps showing up. Every time I turn around, he's there. She laughed. "Maybe he's just bored." "Maybe," I said, rolling over. But I didn't believe it, because deep down, I could feel it. His teasing wasn't random. There was something deliberate in it. Something personal. As I drifted towards sleep, I muttered under my breath, half irritated, half intrigued. Why does he keep finding excuses to talk to me? By the third week at Lakeview Retreat Resort, I'd started to get into a rhythm. Early mornings setting up the lawn furniture, afternoons maintaining the equipment, and evenings restocking supplies in the guest cabins. It was exhausting, but the kind of exhaustion that came with a quiet satisfaction. I liked earning my keep. What I didn't like was how Ryan Benson seemed determined to make sure I couldn't get through a single day without some kind of surprise. It started small. One morning, my supply carts came loose halfway between the tool shed and the pool deck. It wobbled, then collapsed, sending towels and cleaning rags rolling down the hill. I groaned, crouching to fix it. The bolt was gone. I ended up hauling everything back by hand, sweat dripping down my neck. By the time I finished, I was ready to collapse. The next day, I found the same cart outside the shed, fixed, polished, and oiled so well it glided like new. There was no note, no signature, just a small folded napkin tucked under the handle with 3 words. "Try it now. R." I stared at it for a long time, feeling that strange mix of irritation and something softer. Why would he fix my cart? A few days later, it was lemonade. The sun was blazing that afternoon, and I was dragging chairs across the deck when I noticed a glass of lemonade sitting on the railing. Condensation beading, a single slice of lemon floating lazily on top. Next to it, a napkin scribbled with, "Stay hydrated, city boy." I glanced around, half expecting to see him leaning somewhere nearby, smirking as usual. But no one was there. I should have felt annoyed. Instead, I laughed quietly and took a sip. It was too sweet, exactly the way I liked it. After that, I started catching glimpses of his quiet interference everywhere. The mop bucket that mysteriously refilled itself when I was busy. The way guests who'd complained about my inexperience suddenly became polite the next day. The night, I overslept by 10 minutes for my shift and found out Ryan had already told the supervisor I was helping him with a maintenance check. He wasn't doing these things to show off. He wasn't even telling anyone. It was almost like he didn't want me to know. It was Lena who noticed it first. "You realize Ryan's basically your secret guardian angel, right?" she said one evening while folding towels. "More like a sarcastic ghost who can't mind his own business," I said. rolling my eyes. Uh-huh. He's not like this with anyone else. She smirked. Ryan Benson never helps anyone unless he likes them. I nearly dropped the stack I was holding. Likes me? No. No way. He's just what? Being nice. Maybe he feels guilty for teasing me all the time. Lena laughed, a teasing edge to her voice. Yeah, that must be it. He's totally racked with guilt. So he's fixing carts, defending you to guests, and bringing you drinks. Classic remorse. I threw a towel at her. You're impossible. She grinned. You're oblivious. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on my bunk listening to the crickets outside, thinking about every time Ryan had shown up out of nowhere. The quick grin, the raised eyebrow, the way his eyes softened when I was frustrated. If he really liked me, wouldn't he have said something? Then again, maybe I was reading too much into it. After all, he was the boss's son. Confident, popular, out of my league in every sense. I was just a summer hire from Ohio, try not to mess up. Still, his small acts of kindness kept replaying in my mind like a quiet melody I couldn't unhear. The next few days blurred together until the weather broke. It was late afternoon when the first rumble of thunder rolled over the lake. Dark clouds gathered fast, swallowing the sunlight. Mr. Benson had ordered everyone to secure the outdoor furniture before the storm hit. By the time I finished the last set of tables near the lakeshore, the rain was coming down in sheets. I was soaked, squinting against the wind, trying to drag a lounge chair under the canopy. The metal scraped loudly against the deck. That's when I heard his voice over the storm. Ethan, what the hell are you doing out here? I turned, blinking through the rain. Ryan was running toward me, holding an umbrella that was doing a terrible job at staying upright. His shirt clung to him, hair damp, but his expression, half angry, half worried, was what froze me. Trying to finish, I shouted back. Just a few more chairs. Forget the chairs. He grabbed my wrist, pulling me under the umbrella. Do you have a death wish? Or something? I blinked, startled by how close he was, how serious his tone had become. His hand was warm, firm, grounding. I didn't realize it'd start this fast, I said. He sighed, shaking his head with a half-smile. You really don't know when to quit, do you? We stood there for a moment under that flimsy umbrella, the rain hammering all around us, thunder echoing across the lake. He looked at me, then laughed, a quiet, almost disbelieving sound. Guess I can't stop worrying about you, he said softly. For a second, I forgot the storm entirely. The teasing tone was gone. His eyes weren't mocking, they were searching. There was something raw in his voice, something real. I didn't know what to say. He handed me the umbrella and shrugged out his jacket, draping it over my shoulders before I could protest. Come on, let's get you back before you drown. By the time we reached the staff lounge, the storm had turned into a full-on downpour. He made me sit on the bench while he rummaged through the cupboard, finding an old towel. You're soaked, he muttered, tossing it at me. So, are you? I said, catching it. Yeah, but I'm not the one who thinks lightning makes great background noise for hard labor. Despite myself, I laughed. He smiled, satisfied, then leaned against the doorframe, watching the rain. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. There was a calm between us that felt unfamiliar, like the storm had cleared the air in more ways than one. Thanks, I said finally. For everything. You didn't have to come out there. He turned, smirking lightly. If I didn't, who'd keep you from turning into a lightning rod? I rolled my eyes but couldn't hide my smile. You're ridiculous. Maybe. He paused. But you're stubborn. So I guess we're even. Later that night, after he left and the thunder faded into the distance, I found myself sitting by the cabin window, wrapped in his still damp jacket. The air smelled like rain and pine. Outside, the lake reflected flashes of lightning like silver veins under the clouds. I pulled out my small notebook, the one I brought to track expenses but ended up using as a makeshift journal. The words came before I could second-guess them. I think Ryan Benson sees me differently than anyone ever has, and that scares me. I stared at the sentence for a long time, listening to the soft patter of rain. Then I closed the book and whispered into the dark, as if saying it aloud might make it less terrifying. Because I'm starting to see him differently too. The days after the thunderstorm felt different. Ryan wasn't teasing me as much. He still showed up now and then, but his tone had softened. Less city boy, more quiet conversation. Sometimes he'd just sit with me during lunch. No jokes, no smug smile, just asking how I was holding up. It should have been nice. It was nice. Too nice, maybe, because the closer we got, the more I noticed the stares. People talked at the resort. Staff noticed everything. It started with whispers. Ethan's getting the easy shifts now. I heard Ryan covers for him all the time. Must be nice having the boss's son wrapped around your finger. Lena brushed it off when I told her. Ignore them, she said. They're just jealous. But it wasn't that easy. Every time I caught someone looking at me with that knowing smirk, my stomach knotted tighter. I'd worked hard for this job. I didn't want anyone thinking I was here for favors. Or for him. Then came the morning it all boiled over. I was restocking supplies in the lounge when a group of guests arrived early. They started complaining about their rooms. Nothing new. But one of them snapped at me for not moving fast enough. I'm sorry, sir, I said quickly. I'll take care of it right away. He rolled his eyes. I thought you people were supposed to be trained. Maybe you're just here to look pretty. The words hit harder than I expected. I forced a smile and turned away, only to hear Ryan's voice from behind. That's enough, Mr. Hall. Ryan stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, but eyes sharp as glass. The guest sputtered, realizing who he was. Ryan, your father. My father expects guests to treat our staff with respect. I suggest you remember that. The man mumbled an apology and left in a hurry. Ryan turned to me, still frowning. You okay? I nodded stiffly. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, he said simply. He was out of line. I wanted to thank him, but all I could think about were the whispers, the rumors, the looks. Now everyone's going to think I needed saving, I muttered, brushing past him. He followed me out. Ethan, that's not. Just stop, okay? I can handle it. He exhaled, frustrated. Why are you always trying to prove you don't need anyone? Because everyone already thinks I'm getting special treatment from you. I snapped. The words came out louder than I meant. The hallway went quiet. Even the sound of rain outside seemed to pause. Ryan's expression froze, like I'd slapped him. He took a step back. Right. Got it. Ryan, I didn't mean... But he was already walking away. That night, I sat by the lake long after my shift ended, watching the water ripple in the moonlight. I kept replaying what I'd said, wishing I could take it back. The truth was, he had helped me, more than I deserved. But instead of being grateful, I'd thrown it in his face. When I finally went back to the staff cabins, Lena was waiting at the door, arms crossed. What did you do? I frowned. What do you mean? Ryan got into it with some of the maintenance crew today. Word is, someone joked that you were using him for perks, and he nearly punched the guy. My heart dropped. He what? Yeah, he defended you. Loudly. Real loudly. She gave me a look that was part amusement, part concern. Ethan, whatever's going on between you two, it's not small for him. I sank onto the edge of the bed, running a hand through my hair. I didn't ask him to. I know. But he chose to. Which means he cares, even if you're both too stubborn to say it. Her words lingered long after she left. The next morning, I found out Mr. Benson wanted to see me. His office was everything you'd expect. Mahogany desk, Lakeview, silence so sharp it made your skin prickle. Ethan, he said, not looking up from his papers, I've received reports that you've been spending quite a bit of time with my son during work hours. My throat tightened. Sir, we were just... I don't tolerate distractions here. Ryan's position doesn't exempt him, and neither does yours. He finally met my eyes. I expect professionalism. If this continues, I'll have to reconsider your placement. Yes, sir, I said quietly. Dismissed, I left the office feeling smaller than ever. Outside, the air was bright and cruelly clear. Ryan was leaning by the railing, arms crossed, like he'd been waiting. He talked to you, didn't he? He asked. Yeah. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I tried telling him it wasn't like that. It doesn't matter, I said quickly. I should have known better. I'm just staff. You're. Don't do that. Do what? Act like we're from different worlds. You keep putting up this wall like it's going to make things easier, but it's just making everything worse. I stared at him, unsure if I wanted to argue or agree. My voice came out smaller than I intended. You don't understand what it's like being me here. Every move I make gets judged twice. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Maybe not, but I know what it's like to have people decide who you are before you even open your mouth. That surprised me. You? He gave a short laugh, but there wasn't much humor in it. You think I wanted this job? This life? My dad runs this place like it's a kingdom. I'm just the heir who never asked for the crown. For the first time, I saw past the charm, the weight he carried beneath it. But before I could say anything, someone called his name from the porch, reminding us both that we weren't alone. He glanced back at me, half smiling, half sad. Guess I'll see you around, Cole. And just like that, he was gone again. That night, I started packing. It was impulsive, stupid even, but my chest ached every time I replayed his father's words, or Ryan's expression when I'd accused him of favoritism. Maybe if I left early, I could avoid doing more damage. I folded my uniform, shoved my journal into my bag, and stared at the rain streaking down the cabin window. This wasn't how I'd picture my summer ending. Outside, lightning flickered again over the lake, illuminating the trees. I took a deep breath and whispered into the empty room. I never meant to hurt him. The words felt heavy, final. I zipped my bag shut. As I reached for the doorknob, thunder cracked overhead, loud and close, and through the rain, a familiar voice called my name. Ryan was standing on the porch, drenched again, breathless and angry. And that's when I realized he wasn't going to let me leave quietly. When I opened the cabin door, rain blew in sideways, soaking the floor. Ryan stood there, dripping wet, his hair plastered against his forehead and his shirt clinging to his shoulders. "Ryan," I said, stunned. "What are you? You were just going to leave?" His voice cracked with a mix of anger and disbelief. "No goodbye, no explanation, just vanish?" I froze, clutching my bag. "You shouldn't be here. Your dad already thinks." "I don't care what my dad thinks." He stepped inside, slamming the door against the wind. "You think I came out here in a storm to talk about him?" The air between us felt charged, not just from the thunder outside. I could feel his frustration, raw and unfiltered. I swallowed hard. I wasn't trying to make this messy. I just thought it'd be easier if I left. He looked at me for a long moment, breathing hard. Then he said quietly, "Easier for who?" That question landed like a stone in my chest. "For everyone," I said. "Your dad, the staff, you." He cut me off. "No, just easier for you to run away." I opened my mouth to protest, but his tone softened before I could. "Ethan, I get it. You're scared. You think people are talking, judging, watching." He took a step closer, rain still dripping from his hair. "But do you really think I care about gossip?" "It's not just gossip," I said, voice rising. "It's my job, my reputation. I work for this chance, and I can't throw it away just because the boss's son decided I'm his new charity project." His eyes flashed. "Is that what you think this is?" I hesitated, instantly regretting the words. "Ryan, I didn't mean—" "No, say it. You think I've been fixing carts, covering your shifts, and bringing you lemonade because I pity you?" His voice wasn't angry now, it was hurt. "I did all that because I care, Ethan. Because somewhere between teasing you about your toolbox and watching you work yourself to exhaustion, I started looking forward to seeing you every day. You don't get it, do you?" I couldn't breathe. The rain outside roared like applause or warning. I couldn't tell which. "You can't just say things like that," I whispered. "Why not?" "They're true, because it makes it harder to leave." He stepped closer until we were only a few feet apart. His expression softened, but there was no hesitation in his voice. "Then don't leave." I shook my head, staring at the floor. "Ryan, you don't know what you're asking for. You have a life here. I'm just a summer worker. Once August ends, I'm gone." "Maybe," he said quietly, "but that doesn't mean this has to end like it never mattered." I finally looked up at him, meeting his gaze. There was no smirk, no sarcasm, just honesty. It scared me more than his teasing ever had. "Why me?" I asked. "You could have anyone. Someone who fits here. Someone your dad wouldn't disapprove of." He gave a small, sad smile. "Maybe I don't want someone who fits. Maybe I want someone who makes me feel like I don't have to pretend." The room was silent except for the rain tapping against the roof. I didn't know what to say. For weeks, I'd been convincing myself that Ryan's attention was just surface level, that he was toying with me because he could. But looking at him now, I realized how wrong I'd been. He wasn't playing. He'd been reaching out, quietly, hoping I'd stop pushing him away long enough to see it. I took a shaky breath. You have no idea how confusing you are. He chuckled softly. You think you're not confusing me? 1 minute you're all business. The next you're staring at me like I hung the stars. I felt my face heat up. I do not. He grinned. You kind of do. And somehow, in that ridiculous moment, the tension broke just enough for both of us to laugh. The thunder rolled again, but this time it felt distant. I set my bag down slowly. You really came out here in a storm just to tell me that? Ryan shrugged. Yeah, well, subtlety's never been my thing. We stood in silence, the storm easing into a soft drizzle. The air smelled like wet pine and earth. He walked to the window, glancing at the lake shimmering in the faint moonlight. When I was a kid, he said quietly, I used to think storms were the world's way of starting over. Like every time the rain stopped, everything got a clean slate. He turned back to me. Maybe we could use one. His words hit me deeper than I expected. I nodded slowly. Yeah, maybe we could. He smiled, a real one, gentle and unguarded. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled something out. It was a small, smooth stone with a faint carving of the date we'd met scratched into it. I was going to give you this on your last day, he said, but I figured tonight's close enough. I turned the stone in my hand, feeling its cool surface. You carved this. He shrugged, pretending not to care. It's kind of my thing. Helps me think. Ryan Benson, secret artist. Who would have guessed? He grinned. Don't tell my dad. He thinks I spend my free time reading spreadsheets. We both laughed again, softly this time, and the sound filled the cabin in a way that made it feel less empty. I looked down at the stone again. You really didn't have to do all this. He tilted his head. Maybe not, but I wanted to. And for the first time, I didn't argue. Later, when the storm faded completely, we stood at the cabin door. The sky was clearing, and the rain had left the world smelling new. Ryan looked out over the lake. You know, the view's better when you stop running from it. I smiled faintly. I'll try to remember that. He gave me a small nod. Good. Then, without another word, he turned and walked back toward the main lodge, shoes splashing in puddles, hands shoved in his pockets. I watched him until he disappeared into the mist. There was no kiss, no dramatic embrace, no fireworks. Just two people standing in the quiet after the storm, finally seeing each other clearly. When I went back inside, I placed the carved stone on my nightstand beside my journal. I wrote one line beneath the words from the night of the thunderstorm. He doesn't just see me differently. He makes me want to see myself that way too. By late August, the air around Lakeview Resort had changed. The sunlight felt softer, the laughter of guests carried a note of farewell, and the scent of pine mixed with the faint promise of autumn. Every goodbye from a family or couple reminded me that my own was coming soon. My summer job was ending. I've been counting the weeks in May, the days in June, and now, suddenly, the hours in August. Lena was already packing her things when I came back from my last morning shift. Don't pretend you're not going to miss this place, she teased, folding her staff t-shirt. I smiled. I'll miss the lake, and the quiet, and maybe the lemonade machine. She grinned knowingly. And a certain Benson? I roll my eyes. You never quit, do you? She shrugged. It's a gift. Truth was, I hadn't seen much of Ryan since that stormy night. We still crossed paths at the docks or in the dining hall, but it was different now. Calmer, easier. There was no pretending anymore. We didn't need big words or stolen moments. Just small nods, shared smiles, and a quiet understanding that something real had happened between us. That morning, while I cleaned the last of the cabins, I found one of Ryan's smooth carved stones on the porch railing. This one was blank, no date, no initials, just plain. I smiled, knowing it was his way of saying this isn't the end, just another beginning. The farewell dinner that evening felt both warm and bittersweet. Mr. Benson gave his usual speech, thanking the staff, reminding everyone about professionalism, and wishing us luck in the future. He barely looked at me, but there was something different in his tone this time. Less stern, almost approving. Maybe Ryan had talked to him, or maybe I was imagining it. After dessert, people drifted toward the lake to light floating candles, a Lakeview tradition symbolizing wishes for the year ahead. I walked down to the dock, holding my small candle boat, and noticed Ryan standing alone by the water's edge. He turned as I approached. "Hey, stranger." "Hey yourself," I said. "Didn't think I'd see you down here." "Couldn't miss the big goodbye," he said, half smiling. "You heading out tomorrow?" "Yeah, early morning bus." He nodded, staring at the lake for a moment. "You excited to go back?" I shrugged. Part of me is. Part of me isn't ready to leave this place yet." "Yeah," he said softly. "I get that." We stood side by side in silence, watching candles float across the dark water like tiny stars. "I never got to thank you," I said finally. "For what?" "For caring. For seeing me." He looked down, then smiled faintly. "You don't need to thank me for that, Ethan. You make it easy." The breeze picked up, carrying ripples across the surface of the lake. I placed my candle boat gently into the water, watching it drift away. "What did you wish for?" Ryan asked. I hesitated, then smiled. "I'll find my way back here someday." He grinned. "That's a good one." Then he pulled something from his pocket and pressed it into my hand. Another carved stone, this time with a simple engraving. "See you next summer." I looked up, startled. "You planning this far ahead?" "Always," he said, eyes twinkling. "Besides, you still owe me a rematch at kayaking." I laughed softly. "Pretty sure I beat you last time." "Debatable," he said, smiling. "Guess we'll have to settle it next year." We both knew there were no promises. Life had a way of shifting plans, of pulling people in different directions. But in that moment, standing under the fading glow of the candles, I believed him. I wanted to. The next morning, I loaded my bag into the shuttle van. The resort looked peaceful in the early light, the lake like glass, the lodge windows reflecting gold. Ryan stood near the porch, hands in his pockets, pretending not to watch me. I smiled to myself, then walked over. "Guess this is it. For now," he said quietly. I nodded. "Thank you. For everything." He tilted his head. "Just don't forget who taught you how to fix the supply cart." I laughed. "I won't." The driver called my name, and I turned toward the van. But before I climbed in, Ryan said, "Hey, Ethan." I looked back. He smiled, gentle, sure. "You'll always have a spot here, you know, whether you work here again or not." Something in my chest tightened. "I'll hold you to that." Then I got in the van. As we drove away, I looked out the window one last time. Ryan was still there, standing on the porch, watching until the resort disappeared behind the trees. The carved stone in my pocket felt solid and warm in my palm. That night, back in my small apartment in Ohio, I unpacked my things. The stone went on my desk, beside my journal. I opened to the last page and wrote. Lakeview was never just a job. It was where I learned that sometimes the best things come quietly, like laughter after rain or kindness disguised as teasing. Maybe love isn't always loud. Maybe it's just someone showing up when the storm hits. I closed the notebook and smiled. Outside, the cicadas hummed, and for a fleeting second, I could almost hear the lake again, calm, endless, waiting. And I knew I'd be back. End of story.